I'm going to get started. They asked me to come speak about. My name is David Cohen. They asked me to speak about Kashrus topics. I had originally thought to pick like a big topic to speak about, but then I spoke to Rabbi Plotnick, and he suggested no. He says there's a lot of questions the guys have, so just talk to them all these kind of things that interest them. So he gave me a long list of questions that he thinks you guys would be interested in. Some other people filled me with more questions. I'm planning to do about 10 questions with you. But we could do more, or you could ask your own questions. Okay? You don't have to all sit here so neatly and nicely. You could speak up and say things and ask questions either related to what I'm saying or just something random that has to do with Kashrus. And I'll see if I can help you. So I'm going to talk. I have lots to say, but feel free to add your 2 cents also. Okay, the first bunch are going to be about basar b'chalav, milk and meat questions. And the first one was like this. I have a Saltshaker, and I use it for my bagel covered with butter. Okay, I use this. I shake with this Saltshaker over my Saltshaker over my milk and butter. What's going on now? What do I do with my Saltshaker, and what do I do with my bagel? Okay. Any thoughts before I go on? Go ahead.
Does it make a difference whether the Saltshaker is plastic or metal?
Okay, it could make a difference. Why do you think it makes a difference?
I don't know. Normally, like metal absorbs the actual.
And plastic.
Plastic. I don't know.
Okay, so we assume that plastic also absorbs. It's a good question. It's a question because it's not one of the materials listed in the Torah. The Torah tells us different materials, and we know whether they do or don't absorb. Plastic is obviously not in the Torah, right? It's a we call it a man-made material. Okay. So what the main shayla is like this: when we have a tray food, we have a tray full of fleishigs or whatever it is, and steam comes out of that food. So the din is that the steam that comes out of it has the same status as the food itself. Okay, one of the cases in Shulchan Aruch is a person is cooking a pot of milk, and hanging over their oven there's a salami that's drying. Okay, so the milk, if you cook a pot of milk, the vapors are going to come out of that milk. And it's going to hit the salami. So the thing is that if when those vapors hit the salami, it makes the salami treif. Okay, but there's a big condition to that. Okay, and the condition is flavor only transfers when things are hot enough. We call them yad tzaledes bay. Hot enough that if you touch it, you pull your hand back from it. Okay, so it's only if it's yad tzaledes bay. So that means if the pot of milk is over here and the salami is right over here, it's going to be yad tzaledes bay. If it's way higher than that, it's not going to be yad tzaledes bay, and therefore it's not going to give any taste into it. Okay, so now we have to think about what happened. How did the Saltshaker become fleishigs in the first place? What did you do with it to make it fleishigs? Let's think about it. If you put it over a pot of chicken soup. Okay, so then when you shook it over there, it was close enough. The steam coming out of there is fleishigs and made this thing fleishigs. And it can make the salt that's in there also. Okay, but then it also depends on what happens how did you use this Saltshaker? Now, when we pour the Saltshaker over the butter, was it going to be Tom transfer or was not Tom going to transfer it? Okay, so in this case, I'm going to try to give you more definitive answers each time, but in this one, it's going to really depend on the circumstances, how you use your Saltshaker and how you use it on the bread to figure out how fleishigs it is, and therefore how whether it affected the bagel that you made on it or not. Okay? Any questions on this before I go on? Okay. Guys, you're going to have to speak, okay? We're going to need to...
No.
Okay, just in general, a little life. Okay, the next question is, what's the difference when you see a food? Sometimes foods are marked with a hashkacha that says D, which means dairy. You had a question?
Yeah, if I have a water machine that drops water and I have a hot cocoa, the powder, melting that cocoa and the steam rises into the top, and then I use the water, if I do it again, cold water, the fleishigs.
Okay, so it says like this, I made the spout milchigs because when the water poured out, it poured into my hot cocoa, which had milk in it. So, what did you say?
Plastic.
So plastic, I mentioned before, plastic also we assume absorbs also. So it made the spout milchigs. Okay, so my spout that stuff was coming out of is milchigs now. So now what I want to do second?
Cold water or hot water.
Well, so now if I take out cold water out of there, if I take cold water out of that spout, then the spout is milchigs, but the spout nothing can transfer unless it's hot, unless it's yatz lidspot. If I take cold water out of there, nothing's going to happen to it. The water won't become milchigs. If I take hot water out of there, then the water will be milchigs. Okay, now.
So I can't drink that water while fishing?
Okay, that's a good question. I was going to get to that soon, but that's fine. What the answer is, I can't drink that with meat. I could drink it when I'm fleshings. I could drink it after fleshings, before fleshings. As long as I don't eat it together with meat, I'm okay.
So you can't have a black coffee with meat?
You can't. You can't have it with the meat, but you can eat it separate from it. You can eat your sandwich, and when you finish the sandwich, you can have it afterwards. That's okay. Okay, it's not so milchigs that you can't eat it when you're fleshings, but you just can't eat it together with meat. Okay. So the question I was about to start was, there are foods that are marked as D for milchigs, and then the other ones that are marked DE. Okay, it's just made of milchig kalim. Okay, so what's the difference? And why are some things marked D, dairy, when they don't have anything milchigs in them? You look at the ingredients; there's nothing milchigs in them. It looks they're totally pareve. So why do they mark it D? Why didn't they just write that it's on DE, dairy equipment? Okay, so the first thing to know is that sometimes when you look at a list of ingredients, you look at it and something might go right past you that you didn't realize it was milk. Not everything that's milchigs is called milk. Okay, some things that you may or may not know about. There's something called casein and whey, lactose. Those all come from milk. They're all very milchigs. Okay, but then what usually gets people is that when something has a flavor in it, then the word flavor can mean anything. Okay, we don't have any idea what's inside of that flavor. What makes the flavor taste like strawberry or banana or whatever it tastes like? We have no idea. There's no way to know. So unless you're going to talk to the hashgacha who gives hashgacha on the food, they might know what's in there. But everybody else, there's no way to know when you see that. So it could be. The
list of right contains milk or has milk?
Oh, very good question. The question is, milk is an allergen, so it doesn't have to declare on the bottle. It wouldn't have to say contains milk. And the answer to that is not necessarily. And the reason is because when people are allergic, as a rule, people are allergic to proteins. So they would be allergic to the protein that's in milk, like the casein or the whey. That's one part of the milk.
Which makes milchigs?
What did you say?
That makes milk.
Those are milchigs. But there are other parts of milk that are not protein, like lactose. Those are milchigs, but they're not allergens. Or let's say butter oil. Butter oil is not a protein. So I don't know if it has to be listed if it has butter oil inside of it, but butter oil milchigs.
People who are lactose intolerant.
So people who are lactose intolerant might not want to eat that food, but they don't legally have to write that down for that person. They have to write down if it has an allergen in it. They don't have to write if it has something that you choose to not eat. So to speak, that's your problem. They don't have to tell you that. But so they can. So not necessarily if it doesn't have an allergen statement, does that mean it doesn't have something that's milchigs inside of it? Okay. So basically, if you see a thing that has 10 regular ingredients without a flavor in it, if you know ingredients or you know someone who understands about ingredients, they can help you with that. Otherwise, if it has a flavor, then the only one who could really help you is the hashgacha itself. People giving the hashgacha could know whether that flavor is or is not is really milk. Okay, now let's say there's no milk. In fact, we find that there's no milk ingredients at all. Okay, it's really dairy equipment. So what does that mean? Like has been mentioned already, when something is just dairy equipment, it means you can't eat it with fleshings, but you can eat it when you're fleshings. You don't have to wait 6 hours before you eat that thing. Okay, so if DE for most people, not everybody, most people would say that even if you eat only chol v'yisrael, you could eat food that's DE. Okay, not everybody agrees to that. Particularly Hasidim would not eat it. They'll say a food that's DE, they won't eat it. They'll say if it's not chol v'yisrael, they won't eat it. But most people who are not Hasidish will eat a food that's DE even if they only eat chol v'yisrael. So seems like DE seems much better for the company. They would want to write DE on their product. It means you don't have to eat. You can eat it even when you're fleshings, and you could eat it even if you don't eat chol v'yisrael, even if you only eat chol v'yisrael. So companies have all their reasons why they wouldn't write that. Sometimes they like just like all the labels to be the same, or they want to be able to change ingredients tomorrow. Well, who knows, whatever. And some hashgachas actually won't let that. Some hashgachas say, no, we don't believe in DE. You have to write dairy for everything. So if you see something that says on it dairy, and you think that maybe it's really not, you could poke around, and then every once in a while check up on it to make sure and whatever you found out is still true, to find out that it's DE, in which case you'd be allowed to eat it as long as you don't eat it together with meat.
Aren't Oreos like that?
Excuse me?
Aren't Oreos like that?
Right. So in Oreos, a lot of them say D on them. Or maybe all of them say D on them. There, the hashgacha, the OU gets hashgacha on it. They get so many calls about Oreos, which ones are parve or not. They themselves prepare a list that tells you these bunch of varieties are really parve, and these varieties are just dairy equipment or actually dairy. But that's because it's like a really popular. They get a zillion questions about that, so that's why they publicize that information. Another popular one is there's all types of kind bars. It's a type of snack. That also people have a zillion questions about us. Okay.
What bracha do you make on candles?
On kind bars, it's a really good question. It depends on the bar. There's all different types of them. Okay, there are ones that have oats, which might be hadam or mazonos. We're not going to talk about that. Some of them are fruit. They make eights of them. There's a really big variety of bars, and you have to know each one what bracha makes in. Okay, next question. Is it true that you sometimes have to wait 6 hours after you eat certain cheese? Okay, we all know we wait 6 hours after you eat meat before we eat milk. Is there ever such a thing that after a milk thing you have to wait 6 hours?
Yeah,
Parmesan.
Parmesan. Okay, what's special about Parmesan?
Very strong.
Digestion.
It's aged.
It's aged, and therefore,
Very strong.
It lingers in your mouth.
okay,
Very strong town.
very good. Okay, and what? So if we open up a Shulchan Aruch, are we going to see Parmesan cheese? Is that like no?
Aged
Aged.
for 18 months.
Okay, 18 months. Any other guesses over here?
6 months.
6 months. Any other guesses?
I'm on.
Almond. Okay.
3 years.
Okay. Okay. So
18 months.
okay. So we'll skip to that for a second. So the rule is that after fleishigs we have to wait 6 hours. After milchigs, as a rule, we don't have to wait 6 hours. I'll talk to you in a second about what you do have to do. You don't have to wait 6 hours, but if you eat a cheese that's very hard, and the cutoff for that is that if it's aged for 6 months, okay, if it's aged for 6 months, then you have to wait 6 hours before you eat something fleshig after that. Okay, so Parmesan is a really common example of that. There's some other ones. There's a thing called Asiago. There are aged cheddar cheeses. Okay, there are cheese like that, but excuse me.
Blue cheese.
Blue cheese, I believe, is aged also. Yes, I think that's correct. When a cheese is aged like that, it'll say it on the package. You'll be able to see on the package when it'll say how many months, how long it's been aged for. It's something that's proud of that it's been aged for that long. What about when you have a Parmesan cheese, which is again the most common that we see? We have a Parmesan cheese that's in another food, like eggplant Parmesan or Caesar salad. What do you do then?
That'll be a different.
You what?
That'll be a different.
So you think you wait 6 hours? Okay, that's what he votes. 6 hours. Okay. What do you say? What?
What if Parmesan was grated on something hot?
And to what's your question about that?
Would you have to wait?
You grated on something hot, so you want to? You mean you have to wait for the Parmesan now that you grated it?
Yeah. It's grated on top of something hot.
Okay, so that's the same. That's part of my question. Eggplant Parmesan. That's what eggplant Parmesan is. So that's the question. So he said you wait 6 hours. It's okay. It doesn't cost you anything if you guess wrong. You know. Okay.
You have to wait.
What? So anybody has any other thoughts? Okay, so there's a big machlokes about how long you have to wait when you don't have just plain old cheese. Okay, and what's most commonly accepted is like this: if you eat the cheese as is, meaning you make Caesar salad, like you grind it up, like whatever this you said in the back, you just grind it up and you pour it into your salad. Okay, then you have to wait 6 hours because basically you're eating the cheese. But if you melt the cheese and it turns into a liquid, or it turns into a sort of a liquid, like an eggplant Parmesan or in a lasagna, then you don't have to wait 6 hours. Okay, not everybody agrees to what I just said, but that's a reasonably accepted.
Pizza.
So if it got melted onto the pizza, if you put Parmesan, if you melt it onto the pizza,
Cheese on pizza topping is melted.
yeah. But wait a second, but that's only if it actually melts. I've been in pizza shops where on the table there was a shaker that has Parmesan cheese in it, and you just shake it onto your food yourself. If you did that, if you shake it on, then you're gonna have to wait 6 hours.
So they serve you pizza and it's Parmesan cheese on it.
That's fine. You don't have to wait. No. What do you want to say?
For how much?
For how much? What? How much you have to eat?
The cheese you have to eat.
No, it's like a piece of meat. If you eat one piece of meat, you have to even a little piece of meat. You have to wait 6 hours. Same idea. Okay. So now, what happens if you didn't eat if you didn't eat a hard cheese like this, like Parmesan, you just ate a regular cheese. I don't know. You took some mozzarella cheese. Okay, so what you have? We know you don't have to wait 6 hours. Anything else you have to do?
Like just water. Some people hold it a little bit.
Half hour?
Okay, half an hour, a cup of water. Anything else?
What? You're not going off it?
Yeah, you had a piece of I don't know. You had some cheddar cheese. Okay, now you want to eat something flavor.
Shahako and your hands.
What?
Shahako and lasagna.
Clean your hands. Okay. What?
Shahako and lasagna.
Shahako mazarnis. Okay.
What's my family got?
Okay. So the answer is like this. The answer is like this. The first thing is you can't eat them. You can't eat the milchigs and the fleishigs at the same meal, even if it was a really long time in between. Like, let's say you sat down, you made kiddush on Shabbos morning, and you had a piece of cheese with that. Okay, and then you have sitting around at the kiddush half an hour later, you want to have some cold cuts. If it's at the same meal, you can't eat milchigs and fleishig at the same meal. Doesn't make a difference what you did. What?
Isn't that the whole minute by Shavuos where you switch?
Yes, that's correct. Very good. On Shavuos, the Ramah says the reason why we have milchig meals on Shavuos is so that we'll have to have 2 different loaves of bread when we eat our meal, because we eat bread with the cheese. Then we have to bench and make another loaf of bread to have the fleishigs, to have another loaf of bread.
The bench?
Well, you can't eat at the same meal, so you have to bench,
What's the problem?
because you're not allowed to eat milchigs and fleishigs at the same meal. That's what the Ramah holds. And therefore we have the reason why we do that on Shavuos is because on Shavuos they brought a carbon of the shtei halechem, of 2 loaves of bread. So we copy that by eating milchigs, which forces us to have a separate kind of bread for the fleishigs part of it. Now, but what'd you say? Wait a second. What'd you say?
You have to have fleishig. You have to have fleishig.
No, but you're gonna. It's yontif. You assume you're gonna have fleishigs also. Now, a lot of people don't do that. A lot of people just be having a milchig meal. But that's what the Ramah says we're supposed to do. What do you want to say? So why does the lechem mishnah count for shtei lechem? That's a good question. I don't know. But that the Ramah says that the reason why people eat milchigs is because they want to be able to then have 2 loaves, 2 different pieces of bread. Okay, but so the first thing is you can't eat at the same meal. But assuming it's not at the same meal, at this point, if you're not at the same meal, you have 2 choices. Either you wait an hour. If you wait an hour, you could eat fleishigs. The other choice is if you don't wait an hour is you have to do 3 things. You have to eat something pareve, drink something pareve, and check your hands or wash them. Okay? So you eat something pareve, drink something pareve, and check your hands or wash them. Okay.
Check them for what?
Check that there's no cheese. I'm sorry, there's no milk left on them. I'm sorry. You're checking it to make sure that there's no stuff left like cheese or milk
What
on
about,
your
like,
hand.
oil? Like, is oil a problem?
If it's from milk, unless you had pizza and there's cheesy, greasy, yes, then you have to get it off.
So,
So-
also by fish.
What?
Also by fish and meat.
By fish, there's different minhagim. No, you don't have to do that, but there are different minhagim. Most people do. They'll eat something in between, but you don't really have to. Yes.
Let's say Parmesan's grated on hot fries, but it's not melted.
So it depends. If it's still solid, like Mama's like pieces, actual solid pieces, then you have to wait 6 hours. If it melts off and turns into like, it turns liquidy or sort of liquidy, then you don't have to wait.
It's like grated like crumb.
So grated by itself is not enough to get you off the hook. You still have to wait 6 hours. But if the grated then melts, then you don't have to wait 6 hours.
You wait 5 hours.
Same thing. Whatever you do whatever you do. I'm using whatever you do for fleishigs. Yes.
Let's say you keep 3 hours.
Whatever you do, guys. Come on. Okay, let's go. Next question. Okay, now the next question about waiting 6 hours. I made spaghetti in a fleishig pot. Okay. Do I have to wait 6 hours for that or not?
No.
What?
To cook fleishigs in it?
No. To eat, I ate the spaghetti made in a fleishig pot, and now I want to have some ice cream. Okay, am I allowed? Do I have to wait 6 hours before I do that or not?
No.
No. Any other votes? What? Spaghetti, just a plain pot of spaghetti. Yeah, spaghetti's part. What?
Noodles. No. Plain.
That was my question. You made it in a fleishig pot. Okay, I took a fleishig pot. I made some spaghetti in it, and now I want to eat ice cream afterwards. So we had some no's. What do you say? What? You don't have to wait. Okay.
It wasn't anything in the pot. Cooked it and he flashed it.
You tell me. Tell me if that's what it depends on.
If there was some flashigs, then you eat.
Okay. So he says if there's some fleishigs left in the pot. Any other votes? I'll tell you the answer in a second. Is it Ben Yomer? Yes, it's Ben Yomer. Then you have to wait. Okay, that's some yeses over there. What do you say? Fleishig equipment and what? You what?
Can you dip with it?
Okay, so the answer is like this: if it was a clean pot, or it was basically a clean pot, even if there's a little bit of schmutz left inside of it, then you don't have to wait 6 hours. You can't eat it with milk. You can't put cheese on top of that that spaghetti, but you don't have to wait 6 hours. Okay, you don't. But right, it's like DE, like dairy equipment. This is fleshing equipment. Okay, you don't have to wait 6 hours. However, but
Why
what?
isn't that on half shell? Why don't they put that on something if nobody eats?
Because it's so uncommon that a manufacturing company should have kosher fleshing stuff. It's like a really unusual thing. It's like it never happens. Like what kind of I don't know, a restaurant has fleshing kalim, right? So in a restaurant, you might see a sign that says, the pita in this restaurant is considered fleshing kalim. But in something you buy in a package, it's not going to be. But the thing is like this: if there was meat in the food that you cooked it not just in a fleshing pot, but the pot had meat or chicken inside of it, then you do have to wait 6 hours. Okay, so the most common example of that is you take a potato out of the cholent. Okay, you had no meat. Okay, it's a fleshing cholent, but you didn't eat any of the meat. You just had just a potato out of there. Okay, then you have to wait 6 hours. Okay, even though you didn't eat any meat, you have to wait 6 hours. It's different than just in a pot. Okay, if you cooked actually with meat or chicken inside of it, you have to wait 6 hours. Okay? And a common example of that, aside from the chomp cases, is when you go into a restaurant and they serve you French fries and use the same fryer for chicken and for French fries also. The French fries are assumed to have been cooked together with chicken, and therefore you have to wait 6 hours.
It's just oil.
If it's what?
Just the oil.
So if it's really just oil, they only use it for fries. Then
They use it for chicken and then separately use it.
so a lot of people assume that so much grease from the chicken ends up in there. Every time you put a piece of chicken or a piece of meat into there, so much grease that's in there. It's not just oil. It's not just vegetable oil. It's at this point it's oil and chicken fat also, and you have to wait 6 hours for that also.
That's what makes it good.
Okay.
That's what makes it good.
Next, yes, that's correct. We knew somebody who owned a restaurant like this, not here in Chicago, and they said, "No, we never change oil. Why would we ever change it? It just gets better and better the longer it cooks in there. You can imagine, anyhow, okay. Okay, next, I found a milk spoon in a fleshig drawer. Okay, what do I do now? Okay, I found the milk spoon. I can see that it's milk, and it's in the fleshing drawer with all the other rest of the fleshing silverware. What do you do now?
Was it washed with sterilization stuff?
I'm asking you. You tell me what I do.
Again?
What? Do I have to? The question is, do I have to kosher it? Do I have to kosher it? He says kosher it. Okay. Anybody else? What's wrong? He's going to bed. You don't have to be so meek and say nothing. You say something. You're not getting graded, It's like just.
It was the water used. Was the outside right?
Okay, depend. So you say it depends how hot your water is.
You don't know. You don't know what happens.
You don't know, and therefore what? So that's the question. So what do I do now?
The problem would be if it was washed.
He says, "Gotcha." What?
The problem would be if it was washed with Shechitos.
That's one. That's a potential problem. You're telling me first what the problem is. So that is a problem. If it was washed with flesh of kalim. Okay. Anybody else had another problem?
Oh, what if it was actually used? Maybe it was used.
Is it what?
Saltshaker.
Why is it a Saltshaker?
Because it has to be washed with fleshing kalim, and it has to be that he washed it with hot water.
Okay, so you say so that's a question. She say, did he wash it with fleshings altogether? And if he did, maybe the water wasn't hot enough. Okay, that's a fair way of looking at it. But you guys are missing something. Hello, there's a milk spoon in the fleshing drawer. Okay, that means somebody might have eaten chicken soup with this spoon. Okay, why is it in the fleshing drawer? There's a lot of ways that it could have gotten into it. It could have been that they just washed it, milchigs, and then they, by mistake, put it in the wrong drawer. Or it could be they had it at a fleshig meal. So maybe they ate it at the fleshig meal, and then they put it into the drawer. Maybe they washed it with the fleshigs. Maybe the cleaning lady. It could be anything, right? The question is also now. So now it really depends on a lot of things. Well, what kind of spoon is this? Is it a spoon that you'd put, a big spoon you'd eat with, eat soup with it? Is it a small spoon you wouldn't eat with that? How hot? Someone mentioned how hot is the water in your? How hot is? So you could say be safe and we'll kosher it. But it's not always. That's not always a real possibility. I said a spoon. What happens if it was a plate that can't be koshered, right? So not always is the answer. Could we just say no problem? We just kosher it. So it depends on a lot of things. It'll depend on how someone mentioned here. How hot is the water in your sink and your dishwasher? If it's not Yad Saleh display, then that saves us. We wouldn't become fleishigs from there. Okay, so these kind of trials need a Rav to ask to. There's a lot of factors that can make a difference. Whether it needs to be kosher or doesn't need to be kosher. Okay, I'm going to move on to some other kinds of things. Now we finished with the Basar B'chol stuff. Any questions before I move on?
What if because it's in the sink together with the fleshik thing, the tam could go through one spoon to another?
Under the right circumstances, if it's hot enough and there's meat around in the sink, it depends on the detail. There's a lot of details. That's why you have to ask a shayla. They say to the Rav, you say, this is what happened. He'll ask you a lot of questions to figure out, did it become fleshiks or treif or not? Yes.
What about the drink prime?
About prime? I'll talk to you about that if you want.
Bottles.
I can tell you about that. I can tell you about that. I won't tell you about prime per se. I'll tell you in general about drinks. Okay, I'll talk to you about drinks. We'll talk. Prime will just be one of them. Okay. Okay. So let's start like this. Okay. What do you think? What do you guys think about drinks in general? They need hashgacha. They don't need hashgacha. Before we get to the prime itself. What? It always is hashgacha. Okay. What do you say?
If it's water, you don't need hashgacha, but it's flavoring.
If it's water, okay. So he says water is good. Everything else. And
If
he
it's
says,
just like juice, apple juice. Apple juice is apple.
okay. He says apple juice is safe. Okay. What?
100% apple. No, 100% orange juice.
100% juice. Okay.
Orange.
We got a lot of choices over here. Okay.
Milk, if you don't keep Chav Yisrael, doesn't you have?
Okay. I'm not. Milk is a different. Its own little guy. Okay. We'll put milk on top. We're talking about just about regular drinks, other kinds of drinks.
Like soft drinks?
Like yes. So let's start at the bottom. Let's start at the bottom. Okay. If you have just plain water or just plain seltzer that has no flavors and nothing else added to it, like this bottle over here, hopefully. What's in this bottle? It actually has hashgacha, lucky for us. It doesn't even say it has anything because it probably has nothing. It's just water. Okay. So then if it's just plain water or seltzer with nothing else into it, yeah. So and nothing else into it, then it doesn't need hashgacha. Okay. That's yes.
What about these like alkaline?
Okay, so what happens if it all of a sudden, if it has other stuff in it, even if it's plain water, it has minerals and things like that added to it, electrolytes. So most of the time, those things don't make a treif. Okay, but you really need to ask somebody who knows ingredients, who could you read them. You know, there were people who said, you know, if I can't pronounce it, then it's kosher. You know, no matter what, it's always kosher. If I can't pronounce that, that's fine. But it's a little more complicated than that. So you have to find someone who knows the answers, who knows what it is, and you'll tell that person you'll read them off the ingredients, and they'll tell you if it's a problem.
And you could trust the ingredients. What's inside?
Yeah, we live in a civilized place, and when people write, really, when you write ingredients, it's assumed that it's honest, that that's what it is. Okay, I'm sure there are people who cheat, but by and large, we take it. Yes. Is it what? Yeah, if they were right the wrong thing, they would get into trouble for it. And anyhow, most companies are very straightforward, they're upfront about these things. They're not hiding anything, and they write what it says. That's what it is. Okay, now, what did you say? I'm going to get to Coke in a second. I'm going to go in a progression. We started with just plain water or something with that, but now once it's flavored, then we have a problem.
Isn't there a certain percentage where they don't need to write on the ingredients? A certain percentage of something they can put in? They don't need to write.
They don't need to write in when something is a processing aid. Okay, meaning it's not an ingredient. It's meant just to help with the producing of this food. I believe regular ingredients have to be listed. I might be wrong.
And that doesn't need hash the process.
Sometimes it does. But for plain water and drinks, it wouldn't. And what we're talking about now, it doesn't need hashgacha. Okay, but okay. Now let's go to juices. Somebody mentioned here juices. Okay, so the juice of almost every single fruit and vegetable, the plain juice by itself, is kosher. Okay, and the exception to that is
raspberry.
Grape. The exception is grape, because grape, there's a din of stam yain, that if you wine or grape juice, that someone who is not Shem Shabbos touches, it becomes treif. Okay, so that unless it was mavushal, it would become treif. So everything else, what do you say?
Grape juice is mavushal, no?
Sometimes it's mavushal, sometimes it's not mavushal. But also, it doesn't help you if it's mavushal after someone touched it. If the person who is not Shem Shabbos touched it before it became mavushal, it doesn't help you. Too late. You can't cook it afterwards and make it better. It has to be cooked beforehand. Okay, so now, the problem is like this. The juice itself would have been fine. The problem is, if you take juice, if you squeeze, a fruit, apples, and you make apple juice, and you let it sit around, it's going to spoil. Okay, so you're not going to be able to drink the apple juice, because by the time you get it, it's going to have spoiled. So one thing you can do to keep it from spoiling is you could freeze it. If you do that, no problems. But if you want to sell it in a liquid form, then almost the most common thing people do is they pasteurize it. And pasteurizing means you heat it up to a certain temperature for a couple of seconds, and that kills everything that's in there that would make it spoil. And then you put it into a bottle that's also sterile, and then it doesn't spoil. Okay. What did you say? No, the problem is that same equipment that you could use for pasteurizing apple juice or other things can also be used for grape juice. It can be used for chicken soup. It could be used for other things also. Okay, so when something gets pasteurized, all of a sudden that makes it need hashgacha. Now it needs hashgacha not because of the ingredients. The apple juice per se, there's nothing wrong with it.
Is there any juice that doesn't need to be pasteurized?
I can't think of one offhand. Maybe there is. What? Would need to be pasteurized. Again, think about what would happen if you didn't pasteurize it, then it would spoil. So, as a rule, they're going to be pasteurized. Okay.
Prime.
I'm almost at prime. I'm getting there. I'm going to get there. Don't worry, I'm going to get there. Okay. Okay, so what about soda? Okay, what about soda?
They have flavors. Natural flavors.
It has flavors. So, that's very good. Now, every soda has 5 components to it. Okay? The 5 of those 5, 4 of them don't need hashgacha, and only 1 of them needs hashgacha. And the 4 components are water.
Corn syrup.
No. Wait.
Dr. Pepper doesn't have a hesher.
Water. Okay. Wait a second. Carbonation. 'Cause that's bubbles. Okay. That's like sulfur seltzer. Those are both fine. Okay. As a sweetener, like corn syrup is an example of a sweetener. The sweetener doesn't need hashgacha. Okay.
Even glycerin?
What?
Isn't glycerin also?
It's not put in as a sweetener. Glycerin needs hashgacha, but when I say sweetener, I mean like corn syrup or something like that. That's put in meant for sweetness. That's not why you put in glycerin. Let me just say that if you put in enough glycerin for to make it sweet enough to drink, glycerin is also a laxative. Okay, so you don't get 1 bottle of that and you'd be in the bathroom the rest of the day. Okay, so that's not a good idea. It's not a good idea of something to use as a sweetener. Okay, and then there's some minor ingredients that don't need hashgacha. The ingredient that needs hashgacha is the flavor.
What was the 4th ingredient?
The 4th was some minor ingredients, some minor things that are put into it, and the flavor.
What about food color?
Okay, so I'm including coloring together with the flavor. That's how it usually goes in together. Okay, they're put in together. Okay, now.
Not in the list.
What about things that don't have a hesher, like Dr. Pepper?
Wait a second. So I'm going to explain this. So wait a second. So we have a flavor. So all of a sudden it needs hashgacha because it has a flavor to it. Okay, but there's something unusual about soda, different than the things we spoke about until now, and that is that because soda is carbonated, it doesn't need to be pasteurized. Actually, you probably couldn't pasteurize it. It doesn't need to be pasteurized. It won't spoil. Even without pasteurization, it won't spoil. So because of that, it wouldn't need hashgacha because of the kalim of it. So the only part that needs hashgacha is the flavor. That means is that if I know that Dr. Pepper, the flavor of Dr. Pepper is kosher, I don't need to have a hashgacha on the actual bottle. I don't have a hashgacha to make sure that somebody was watching when they put it into the bottle, because I know that the flavor that's in there is kosher. All the other ingredients don't make a difference to me, and therefore I could drink it. And that's why people drink these kind of things as long as they know that the flavor itself is kosher. How would you know if the flavor is kosher? It has hashgacha on it. How would you know if it has hashgacha on it? That's why people like us, like CRC and others, make lists of all the flavors that are kosher that have hashgacha on them, so you know to buy them. You want to buy cherry Pepsi? Does that have hashgacha? No hashgacha? We just
They don't say their flavor. They just say
There's a certain
right.
type of
They say just flavor.
Yeah.
But there's a person giving hashgacha to Dr. Pepper. It's the okay. They give hashgacha to Dr. Pepper, and they have a long list. These are all the flavors of Dr. Pepper that we give hashgacha to. If Dr. Pepper comes out with a new flavor, then we have to find out from the okay. Is it certified or not? Did you give hashgacha to it or not?
What about Coke? Coke didn't Coke have like a special?
Yes, a Coke has a new some special flavor right now. So if you want to drink.
Secret, no?
Yeah, so the people who give hashgacha, in the case of the Coke, it's OU who gives hashgacha to it. They know whether it's kosher or not, and therefore they tell us that it's kosher or not.
Doesn't Coke not tell anybody the hesher?
So how they deal with that is a good question. There are theories about how they do, but there is the OU has control to make sure that it's kosher. Okay, exactly how they do it is that in itself is.
When they give a list of like 200 things and ask for any of these things bad, that they say they're all good. But no.
But how would we know from that list? Maybe they're not telling us all the things that are in it. So the CRC.
That one ingredient.
So there was a time that the CRC gave hashgacha to a company that was very secretive like that they wouldn't even tell us what was in it. And what we did for that company when the CRC was giving hashgacha was like this. The company would say is, we're going to make that secret component. I can't tell you. We're going to make this secret component. We're going to make this secret component. And we did it like this. Let's say they were going to make it in this room. The rabbi would come to the room, make sure that everything in this room was kosher. Whatever was in this room was kosher. He would go outside. The guys inside would mix whatever they had to make whatever they had to make this component that was the secret component. They would make it, and then when they would be finished, he would sign the container saying, "I was here to make sure these were kosher."
How do you know what's in it though? You don't know.
He didn't know what's in it. He
Okay,
knew.
so
He walked into the room. Let's say there were 50 things in the room. All 50 ingredients.
Hiding a.
Okay, so.
He's going that far, he probably
So he saw all 50 ingredients in the room were kosher. He walked. They stood outside the room. An hour later, the guy came out and said, "Okay, we're ready." And he went in and signed the container saying, "Yes, this was kosher. I don't know what's in it. I don't know how much. Or I don't know what's in it."
Don't they have like a guy taste it to see if it's really tastes the same? Like,
What do you mean if it tastes the same?
Because otherwise, how do they make a hashgacha on everything?
So on regular things, they see how they're making it. They know what they're making.
On everything that company is making. Okay, so this bottle is good, but what about all the rest of the bottles?
No. So what it is? No. So you're right. What I'm saying is like this. This wasn't the product that you were going to buy in the store. This was the secret component. That component went into 1,000 factories, and each one of them took a spoonful of that and put that in. They were mixing it with 100 other ingredients, but this one secret component that was in there, that one would come in signed off by the mashgiach that it was done by.
50 ingredients or 50 machines? There's like.
No, 50 ingredients.
And they use only some of them.
Right, he had no idea. They could have used one. They could have used all 50. He had no idea what they used. He didn't need to know what they used. It wasn't important. Okay. So for,
you didn't watch them make it. How do you know that they didn't pull out or anything?
That was his concern, that he had a pig in his pocket. Okay, but
mice like that with the Oppenheimer. He went to Mexico or something.
And what?
And they said like hide them, and there's like a note in it, and
Spanish.
to like hide the pig or whatever. Hide this in this thing.
Could be. It's possible. I mean, we know Rabbi Oppenheimer speaks Spanish. That's why they send him to these places.
Right.
How
do you know that happened?
So I guess in this case, I don't know the fine details. In this one room, you could just see what's in the room. But okay. So the sodas have this advantage that as long as we know the flavor is okay, then we're okay. So we just have to find out when they come out with a new type of Pepsi. We just have to find out that variety is okay, and we can buy what we want to. Okay, but now we come to energy drinks like Prime. Energy drinks almost always are not carbonated, so they need hashgacha because of the flavor that's in there. They hashgacha because of they always have a flavor in them. They might have other sensitive ingredients, but they're like I mentioned beforehand. They have a problem with the kalim that they're made onto. Okay.
What about Gatorade that doesn't have hashgacha?
Well, first of all, it always does. Oh, I'm sorry. I take that back. The types of Gatorade that are kosher always have hashgacha on them. The ones that don't, then you can't drink them.
Check it. Why don't you get a check by a company?
No, you can't check. It would need hashgacha because it's bottled. It's pasteurized on equipment in order to keep it from spoiling. Okay, so the energy drinks are not carbonated. They would be made on kalim that are used for other things. And there's actually for energy drinks and also for fruit juices to a certain extent. These companies run 24/7. Most of these companies are running all day, every day, and they're switching products whenever they need to. Okay, so they get an order for this of a truckload worth of this, they have to switch to that and then move from one thing to the other. So not only might the kalim be treif, when it has hashgacha, it's very hard to give hashgacha because the kalim that they use, this equipment is used is hard to kasher, and there's a basic rule of kashering is that things have to have not been used for 24 hours before you kasher. Okay, well, telling companies like this to wait 24 hours is like almost impossible. It's very difficult for companies like this to be closed for 24 hours. They're running 24/7. They never stop. They stop for 15 minutes in between things, just to flush the equipment out. So telling them they should be closed for 24 hours is very difficult, and it makes the hashgacha to give hashgacha on these things that much more complicated. Okay, so the energy drinks in general need hashgacha. In the case of Prime, it has a hashgacha on it. It's hashgacha from a smaller hashgacha who's working on making sure they get their things done correctly. For now, we don't recommend it yet. We have hopes that it will be. We're trying. They're working on it. For now, the cans are okay, but the bottles, it still needs some work to be before it's really ready for people to drink it. One of my sons wanted to drink some of it. I was in some of the factories, so he said to me, I said to him, I could read some of the product codes and tell you which one is from the factory where there's no shilos left to it. So he was all excited, but he wanted me to get him a bottle. Make sure you find me the bottle with the right code that you should know that it's okay. But that's really unusual. But for everybody else, I did not. They offered me one at one of these things. They said, hey, you want to take a bottle when you leave? Just take one. We have a zillion
You
bottles.
don't know if it's kosher.
In that factory, I knew that it was.
The bottles even?
Which bottle was that?
Right, that bottle I knew was kosher, right.
So why can't
The
we buy
product?
bottles?
So, no, because it's made in a lot of factories. In this specific one that I was in,
Which this specific one, they did each one a different flavor. How's it work?
no. Each factory is doing all the flavors. It's not a specific, if it was one flavor, we would tell people we're not.
Is it in one place? Is it in one place? Like all factories in Illinois are kosher?
No, it wasn't like that. It was very specific factory. So my son was very upset that I didn't take his bottle for him. He said, well, when you couldn't take it, you should have taken me a bottle, Anyhow, okay, yeah. Okay, let's get to.
Wait, you know the specific product code?
Do you want me to tell you?
Yeah.
I can't. Sorry.
Gavin, does everybody know how long it's going to take for CRC to know when the bottles will be okay?
No, but we've been working with them, and the people who give that hashgacha are working on it to get things up to what we would be comfortable with.
So why are
hopefully,
you comfortable with the cans?
it has to do with the processing and what's done for it. It's not done the same way as the bottles are.
So how can they give ash? So they have lower standards than the CRC.
They are working on making sure that it's up to what we would accept.
But could someone rely on their standards?
Well, if I thought so, then I would tell you could drink it. Right? If I tell you I don't think you should drink it, then I don't think it's good. So you say, if you weren't you, what would you say? Well, what can I tell you?
Is CRC the only one that has the hashir about, right?
The CRC has been working with the people who give the hashgacha.
What about
You ask
Star
OU
K or
also.
OU? Do you
Meaning,
know
is-
anything
is
about
the-
that?
You could ask them.
Wait, if they're giving an hashgacha that's not to the CRC standards, so how can the CRC ever work with them? They could always be running.
No, because they're very fine people. If they once things are the way they're supposed to be, then it will be.
Wait, in my car with the product code, you tell me the service?
Nope.
Right, so when could we call Rebbe to see if it's kosher?
You don't have to call me. You call the CRC. They'll tell you the same thing that I would tell you.
Seriously,
Try it in a few weeks. I don't know. Try in a while. I don't know. Come back from camp. You'll try that. See what they say. Okay, we have another few minutes. Let's do like this. What's the difference between one shechita and the next? They both have, all the different meats have good hashgachas. I shouldn't say that. If I see a lot of meat, I see a lot of meat which all has reputable hashgachas on it. So what's the difference? Why do some people only eat this hashgacha? I don't eat that meat. I only eat this meat. What's the difference? Okay, I understand that if it has a really bad hashgacha, fine, we won't eat it. But we're talking about when it has a nice, fine, reputable hashgacha. What should be the difference between them? Why would somebody care? If it's this or that, what should be the difference? Okay, any guesses? What? Okay, that's a good guess. That's a good point. I'll explain what that means in a second.
The same answer. It's standards.
That what?
What's the standards for this company?
Okay, so that's a good way to say it. So the thing is like this: 100 years ago, literally 100 years ago, people who bought meat that was sold as kosher could have been eating. It was horrific. Okay, they could have been eating horse's meat. They could have eaten nevelas. A nevela means an animal that wasn't shechted properly, or treifas. It was really bad news. Nowadays, it's way better. Nowadays, all the reputable hashgachas are doing really good jobs. Okay, but that doesn't mean there's no difference between them. There's big differences between them. Okay, I'm going to tell you some of the examples. How fast do they shecht? How much time is there between one and the next? How many breaks do the shechtim get? It's very You have to focus a lot to be a shaychet and be a boidik, to check, to work on at a shechita. How many people do they have working there? How do they make sure when they have an animal that wasn't shechted properly, a nevela, that they mark it, that doesn't get through, that doesn't get sold as kosher? How well are they checking for treifas? What happens if there's 3 hashgachas on the place? Who's really in charge? Okay, if there's 3 hashgachas on the package, which often is with meat, there'll be more than one. Who's in charge of there? And how good are the people who are working in the place? Okay, and then I'm going to mention a different type of thing, which is what he said over here. The first is like this. You may have seen that there's meat that's called, all meat that you would buy is probably glad kosher, but there's also meat that's labeled as Beis Yosef. Okay, and that has to do with when you shecht an animal, you check to make sure it's not a treifa. Treifa means there's something wrong with it that will make the animal die within a year, and you check the lungs. Okay, that's the thing that everyone has to check is check lungs. Okay, when you check the lungs, you're looking to see if there's some like mucousy stuff stuck onto it that will make the animal into a treifa. Okay, and depending on how much there is, will depend on whether it's kosher, if it's glad kosher, or if it's Beis Yosef. Okay, those are 3 different levels that you can get. Okay, and guess what? Not every shechita has the same rules for what qualifies for what. So what this guy calls glad is what this person calls Beis Yosef, or the other way around. Well, I don't know if it's the other way around, but what one person calls glad, the other person might call Beis Yosef. So if you knew the difference between his standard and his, you might choose one over the other one. I know that that's the standard that I want to eat. Okay, and then there's other things like you buy chickens. Do you know that every chicken, either when it's a newborn chicken or before it's hatched, they give injections into the chickens to keep them from getting certain diseases? Like you get a vaccine, they get vaccines also. Either when they're newborn, like a day or 2 old, or before they're born, in the egg still. Okay, there's all different opinions as to if and how you should do those injections.
Well, what's wrong? Because of the treifa?
It can make the animal into a treifa. Yeah, if you poke it in the wrong spot, it's going to make the animal into a treifa.
They do this even for kosher animals? This is like
For birds.
It's a mandatory thing to do.
I don't know if it's mandatory, but people who raise chickens do it because they don't want the chickens to get sick. Just like you give a newborn baby a vaccine. So they want to do to their chickens to prevent...
It sounds like a lot of money to do it.
I guess not.
What'd you say?
So I guess not.
No, right. Obviously, it's worth it for them, right? That's okay. Then there's other things like that you might not have guessed. You know, there are some shechitas that require the shechtim to go to the mikveh every morning before they shecht. Okay.
Like what?
So if you think that's important, then you want to eat from that shechita, not from the other shechita. Okay. Anyhow, there's all kinds of things like this. Okay. The differences between one and the next in different standards. Now, most people, even if you knew what you held, even if you know, I only want this or that, the other thing, you would have a clue how to figure out what that is. And you sort of have to count on other people to tell you, people who have been to the factories, to the shchitas, or people who know the differences between one and the next. Most consumers would have a clue. How in the world am I going to find out whether they check the chickens every Tzumas Hagidin or only once in a while? Okay? Even if you were a consumer who knew what it means to check the Tzumas Hagidin on a chicken, whatever that means. Even if you knew what that meant, how would you know whether your shechita does that or doesn't do that, or how they do for that? So you end up in the end, most people end up having to count on others to find it out. Okay, I have time for like one more question, but if you guys want to ask me questions on the floor instead.
Let's say you have kugel and like chicken in an oven together.
Yeah.
Is it kugel with fishes?
Kugel and chicken in the oven. Okay, that's a good question. So we said beforehand that there's a potential for zaya spreading from one thing to the next. So depending on what it is, it might end up being flesh because of that.
What's it depending on?
What?
What is it dependent on?
It depends if it's covered, if it's not covered. It depends what kind of food you're cooking together with it. As a rule, you would not have to wait 6 hours from it. I would guess that as a rule, you would not have to wait 6 hours. You wouldn't eat it with milchiks, but you would not have to wait 6 hours.
What's the halacha about Lubavitch?
Okay, so I just mentioned to you a lot of differences that depends on whether you choose a shechita or not a shechita. So if you think that Lubavitch shechita is the standard that you want, or it's not the standard that you want, then that's what you want to eat. It's not. It's just as much as saying, and what's Kiryas Yoel shechita, you know. So there's all difference between one and the next, whether you should eat it or you shouldn't eat it. You know, that's.
Is there any official kosher restaurants where you would suggest not implemented?
In Chicago?
Yeah.
So, it happens to be no, but it would be that's a really strange question. He says, you know, you work for the CRC. Do you think there's any CRC things that are not so good?
No, it's not
So-
CRC. Not every restaurant in Chicago, it's people for kosher is certified by the CRC.
As far as I know, maybe I'm wrong. All the local restaurants, as far as I know, are CRC. I mean, the ones that are kosher.
Maybe we can go to Mills.
What? Mills is CRC.
Well,
Mills is CRC.
Yeah, with that.
Pride thing,
Yeah, but they have like that.
the Pride band.
So there are some people who say that's not a technical kashrus issue, but they say they stand for something that I don't like, and therefore I won't patronize that store. That I'm not coming from the kashrus perspective. I'm saying is, and they're doing it because they think they believe in it or they think it's good for business. And I say, hey, I don't believe in that. So I'm not going to support your store. I'll go to a different store. So that's your choice as a consumer. That's
So how could the CRC give a hechsher on something that's not that is connected to Torah?
So it's a good question. As a rule, we give hashgacha really on the kashrus parts of the food, not on the other parts of it. But there's an exception. The exception is that a restaurant has to be comfortable for a firm person to walk into it. So let's say the waitresses are not dressed tznius. So then, and you as a firm person shouldn't be comfortable walking into that. So we'd say then that's part of making this a kosher restaurant. You should be able to walk into there. So on each question, you have to think is this that kind of a thing, or is it not that kind of a thing? Let's say the owner does something privately, so it's not our business. You know what I mean? So the question is, how much does that affect you as the guy walking in? What?
With Angel Bakery,
What about it?
that all our one boycotted it, the owner or whatever.
So first of all, Eretz Yisrael and America are two different places, very different from each other, and that it's a judgment. Each time it's a judgment. Is this something that's so not appropriate for firm people that a firm person doesn't belong in this place? That's a.
I heard that Taboon. I don't know if it's true, but I heard that some non-Jews were grilling their own things on the grill.
Some private people or the people who work there?
Who were in the back.
Customers?
No, the
The
workers.
Mexicans
Yeah.
They were cooking their own things that they brought from their house or whatever.
Okay, so does that sound reasonable to you? I mean, there's a mashgiach there, so
But I don't know.
it's hard to believe.
Mishkiach is
They'd be
there
like,
all the
go
time.
cook the rabbi.
Yeah, there's mashgiach there all the time. Mashgiach there all the time. So you.
feel like he left for a minute or something. I don't know.
When the Mishkiach leaves to the bathroom, they throw on their stuff.
So let me always like this. I would find it hard to believe, but if someone thought it was true, then they probably would have called us seriously and say, "Hey guys, I heard that when the mashgiach goes to the bathroom, Jose cooks his hot dogs on there." So then I should never look into it. I can't. Okay, let's stop here.
Well, actually, since